There are so many things to stress about when it comes to international travel. And with my upcoming Europe trip, you know what I'm not stressing about? Finding Wi-Fi or getting scammed on overpriced SIM cards. I'm using Saily, the eSIM app that keeps you connected in over 200 countries without the airport hassle or those ridiculous roaming fees. It's made by the folks behind NordVPN, so privacy and security covered. You install Saily once, pick a plan, and you're good to go. Whether you're hopping countries or just need solid data from the moment you land. And bonus, Saily has a built-in ad blocker that can save you up to 28% on mobile data. That's more scrolling and less wasting data. So if you're traveling soon, do this now. Download the Saily app in your app store and use the code DATEABLE at checkout for 15% off your first data plan. That's DATEABLE for 15% off. Stay connected, stay smart, get Saily.
I've been on a health kick lately with the wedding and then just realizing it was time to start eating better in general, which is why I love Washington red raspberries. They are clean, simple, and a seriously delicious way to add more nutrition to your day, whether you're trying to clean up your snacks or build better meals. They're American grown, picked at peak ripeness, and frozen within hours to lock in nutrients like fiber, antioxidants, and vitamin C. And they have no added sugar. Just fruit as nature intended. Instead of my typical breakfast sandwich, I've been doing a red raspberry smoothie, and it's been an excellent source of fiber because, fun fact, raspberries are one of the highest fiber berries. Want to discover new ways to use American frozen red raspberries and get more details on where you can grab a bag of these delicious berries? Go to redraz.org. That's REDRAZZ.org. You'll find recipes, health tips, retail locations, and everything you need to make frozen Washington red raspberries a regular part of your routine. And don't forget, look for Product of the U.S. on the bag. Some of my favorite products made with Washington red raspberries are Costco Kirkland Signature 3-Berry Blend, True Fruit Hyper Chilled Chocolate Covered Raspberries, milk or dark, or Smucker's Raspberry Jam, peanut butter and raspberry Uncrustables.
Hi, I'm Yui Xu.
And I'm Julie Krafchick.
We're active daters turned dating insiders.
Here to dive into everything modern dating and relationships.
Welcome to Dateable. Hello, friends.
Welcome back to another episode of Dateable.
Now, have you ever been told that you should be independent and that you should be self-sufficient and live your best life, but at the same time, allow space in your life for a partner? How do you balance the two? Can you actually be too independent is the question I always have.
It is a definite question because I think the question always is like, is the independence empowering? And in a lot of ways, it absolutely is. Mm-hmm. Or is it keeping you single? Like, are you holding people at arm's length and causing that connection to not form? And there's definitely a middle ground that we're hoping to really drive home today in this episode, because I think it's really important to look at the both extremes so we can help dial it to get to that place where we are, independent. Like, we're not necessarily reliant on another person, but we want to have someone in our life and we want to make room for them.
It's almost like, are you independent because that's a core value, or are you independent because you're bitter or that you feel disappointed by dating, that you feel like that's your only option is to lean into your independence?
Right. And I think there's also like an independence of like, if something happened, I wouldn't necessarily need someone else to like survive. Like, I can take care of myself, versus an independence of like, I'm always like only going to put my needs in the front and not make room for anyone else in theirs.
And I guess we should define what independence means to all of us, because I think so many of my female friends have grown up with mothers who told them not to rely on men, to have your own bank account, to make sure you're financially stable, to make sure you're financially independent, myself included, because our mothers didn't have that or didn't have the opportunity to do so. So independence for me is deeply tied to that financial independence, which then allows you to be independent in other areas of life.
Absolutely. I mean, I think this is where, like, when I think about like the downside of independence, I always think about one of our book events that we did where we had someone like raise their hand for a question. It was the
Mm-hmm.
event that we did in ground floor in San Francisco, and we had someone basically raise their hand and say like their partner was upset because she never wants to like go to any of like the events that they're kind of part of. And she basically like didn't want to because she's like, oh, it's threatening my independence. Like
Mm-hmm.
I want to do what I want to do and I don't want to go to your events. And our take for that was like, if you're going to be in a relationship, like sometimes you have to go to things to support your partner too. Like it's not all about you at the end of the day. So I think that's where like the line gets blurry, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion.
That conversation really struck a chord with me because it made me really think about what does the value of independence mean to me in my life. And I think I've come to this conclusion that if you value independence more than a partnership, then you have to almost deprioritize partnership.
Yeah.
The two cannot coexist. I think they are very much conflicting. Yes, you can be independent and in a partnership, but you can't be, I must be independent and still be in a partnership. Those are two very different mindsets.
And I think it's like one of those things I'm even like struggling with like financial independence
Yeah.
because even when you're in a relationship, you kind of maintain financial independence. But at some point, if you do get married and do like a traditional merging of the lives, like you do lose some independence with that. It doesn't
Yes.
mean that you're not self-sufficient. Like I still value like self, like supporting myself. Like I don't know if I would necessarily not want to work because like I would feel like I didn't have that out. But then at the other time, like there are going to be times like in your life that maybe you do take a step back from work to like
Mm-hmm.
when you have kids, for instance. And like, I think that's going to be hard for me to like navigate that piece. But that is kind of being in a relationship is looking at the greater good for both of you and not just you
Right.
at the end.
Right. And what we hear from lots of people who value their independence, there's something really interesting happening. When you get married younger, you're taught to start putting money aside for that independence, right? So that in case something happens. So you're building your independence within a relationship. But at our age, when you get married later in life, you're taught to protect your independence. So it's a lot of when you merge your lives with someone else, it's like, how do you protect the assets you already
Yeah.
had? That's why so many of us get prenups. And
Hmm.
how do you make sure that that stays solely to you? Both of those scenarios, there's something about protection of that independence, also implying that a relationship threatens that independence. So I get it. The conflict so many of us have is how do I not let my relationship threaten the independence I've already built?
Yeah, and I think about it too, like when we become we's, like when you start
Yeah.
to talk in we's instead of I's, because it happens, right? Like when you're with someone all the time. And all this is not to say that you can't have independence. Like we're not saying like, oh my God, once you get into a relationship, you just lose your whole identity and sense of
Yeah.
self. We're talking about like how do we strike a healthy balance of independence or interdependence? And that's what we'll get into in this episode. But I think about it too. It's like just because you're in a relationship doesn't mean like you have no time on your own. It's like, how do you carve out some time, but don't make it like that it like overruns the entire relationship either.
I would also take that a step further and say the independence you cultivate in a relationship still benefits the relationship.
Yeah, true.
You're not taking time out for yourself solely for yourself. You're actually doing it so that you can be re-energized when you come back together with your partner. So it's all still in service of the relationship.
Yeah. And I mean, I think a lot of people can relate to this. It's funny with our dating archetypes quiz. If you haven't taken it yet, go to howtobedateable.com, take the quiz. We love talking about the quiz, but we were just really surprised at the amount of mavericks that came through, which
Mm-hmm.
are, some of the archetype that does kind of have more of that independence. And, even if people weren't Mavericks, a lot of people like strongly agreed with a lot of the statements regarding independence. And I
Hmm.
think it's just a testament to our society, especially as women, that we are, not told not to be reliant on men as
Yes.
much, or we're
Yes.
supposed to, have our own career paths and do all the things. So a lot of this is societal, that independence is so valued. And again, not saying that it's not valued, but we're trying to figure out like what is that healthy balance.
And the toxic part of all of this is we tend to criticize people who aren't
Yeah.
independent in relationships. The trad wives,
Yep.
there was so much criticism towards them. End of the day, you just got to do what works for you. And if independence is not a core value of yours, it's fine. I actually think it's totally okay for someone to be like, I'm going to create a life where I'm codependent. I'm relying on someone else. That is fine. I'm done with the days where I'm criticizing or judging people who think that way. I was not brought up that way. I can't untether my thinking
Yeah.
towards independence, but if that's not you, don't worry about it. There's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah. And I think on the flip side is like there are couples we've seen that are so independent that they don't spend a lot of time together.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if that works for you, that's great. It's
Yeah.
more of just like, does it work for you? I actually saw this video on TikTok recently, and it wasn't about dating, but it was more just like the culture of independence and setting boundaries. And like the girl that was doing it was like, I'm just going to rant for a second. It's like we've become so selfish, and we've conflated independence with selfishness.
Yeah.
And it's like, if your friend has a birthday, even if you don't want to go, you go because it's your friend's fucking birthday, instead of being like, I'm putting up a boundary to protect my space. And it's like, you can do that, but also there's a consequence that you might not have friends at the end of the day if you're always protecting your space and you're not going on it like out of your way for other people. So I think it's up to everyone to understand the value. And, I've talked to my partner about this before because I think he's someone that values independence.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, look, like I recognize that I have less independence now. It doesn't mean that I have no independence, but I have less because I'm in a relationship. But the benefits of the relationship and having that person with me, that outweighs it. And I think that's what like people need to decide. It's not to say like sacrifice all your values, but at the end of the day, are your values serving you in like the rich life that you want?
Yeah. And even in that example you gave of going to a friend's birthday, the question also, it's the same as if you're in a relationship. Are you benefiting that friendship? It's not about you, it's about you and this person, your relationship to this person. But I do think, and Esther Perel has brought this up, we've become such an individualized society that the first line of thinking is always, does this benefit me? Is this something I want to do?
Yes.
And if we live life where we only did the things that we want to do, you're right. I don't think we would have friends. I don't think we've had relationships. And maybe that's okay for some people. Maybe that's like, I'm opting out. That's okay. But I would argue most people want to have some sort of relationship. Doesn't have to be romantic, but we have to think in terms of in relation to someone.
I think it's also easy to get lazy too. Like I think about it like, yeah, if you ask me objectively, would I rather sit on my couch or get ready and go out for my friend's birthday? I'd probably like say in the moment, sit on my couch. But then as I was doing that, I would probably regret that instantly. And at the birthday, I would probably be having the best time and really like, rising to the occasion. And actually that's serving me a lot better, even through an individualistic lens. I think sometimes we just opt for like what's easier, and that doesn't mean that's always better.
So playing devil's advocate, because we've had experts talk about this too, is if you end up doing something you don't necessarily want to do, it doesn't benefit anybody because you're showing up with drained energy, maybe negative attitude. Isn't it better if you just stayed home? I'm not saying this is your case. I'm just saying like, what is the line we draw between protecting our energy and our boundaries, which is the season I'm in, but then cultivating these relationships without building up this like negativity or showing up with drained energy, right?
Yeah, it's a hard line because I think like if you were like, well, I'm going to be really negative being at my friend's birthday. I'm
That's
just
not
going to
fun.
stay home.
Nobody wants
And
you.
no one wants you, but I also think that would like really piss off your friend.
Yeah.
And like, that's not a good thing for your relationship in any way.
Mm.
So I don't know what I think the balance is probably individual to like the specific thing that's there. I don't know how to answer that fully, like what
Oh,
that balance is. Yeah.
I think that's why we're having this
Yeah.
conversation, because it is so complicated and nuanced, and we're constantly being faced with these decisions. And I struggle all the time with what is the line I draw. And I saw this post yesterday that was about decentralizing romantic relationships. And I thought that was actually kind of an interesting way of looking at it too, is so many of us, especially like people who listen to our podcast, we centralize romantic
Hmm.
relationships. But if independence is so important to you, maybe we decentralize romantic relationships, but you got to centralize something else. Is it friendships? Is it family? Like there still has to be a North Star that
Yeah.
you're working towards, and all of your actions feed into that.
Yeah, I mean, I think like thinking about like the activities more, I think maybe there's an easier solution on that. Like if you have a partner, whether it's romantic or not, and you can talk to them about like what's really important, what are the must-haves that they go to. I
Hmm.
remember like going to this comedy show and it was they like brought up couples to like hear about the issues. And like one
Oh
of them
boy.
was like how like her boyfriend never wanted to do anything.
Uh
And like
huh.
she was always going to events on her own.
Uh huh.
And their advice was like, okay, trying to make him go from zero to like everything is going to be really hard. And he's going
Yeah.
to just show up and be miserable. Can you
Yeah.
pick like the top must do events? And when you communicate it, be like, this is a must for me.
Yeah.
And then everything else is optional. And he can decide based on his energy and feeling towards it. But at
Yeah.
least the musts are getting taken care of. So maybe that's a solution if you're like deciding of like, okay, where do I extend a little, like
Hmm.
beyond what I maybe want to do for the sake of my relationship versus preserve my energy.
I do like that solution a lot. And I think that solution can bring to light how much you want to be in a relationship versus preserving your independence. I say that because that sounds fucking exhausting, to constantly being like, I'm going to ask him, but he may not want to go. I don't know. Maybe this is something he would want to do. It's like that constant checking in, that if you absolutely prioritize relationships, it's the work that must be done. If you're like, that sounds exhausting and tiring, then maybe you don't prioritize that relationship, right? Maybe
Yeah.
it's like, I don't want to be always asking if this is something that you would be interested in. I want to just live my life and just make it easier for both of us.
I'm curious because I know like this is something you feel like you struggle with.
Oh yeah, all
What
the
are
time.
the areas that you're like, this, it's easy for me to be independent, like interdependent versus the areas that I fight it?
I think there are certain activities I love doing on my own, like travel, shopping. I don't need a partner for that. So when my partner opts out of those things, I'm not like devastated. But the struggle I have is when you start developing interests that you love doing on your own, you start living separate lives. And then at some point you go, what are we in a relationship for? So I
Mm,
had a friend a few months ago. She's been married for 8 years. They don't have kids. They live very independently from each other, to the point where they choose different seats on a plane when they go
mm,
travel, because he likes aisle, she likes window, she likes the back, he likes the front, etc. Right? So they are doing everything based on what they like.
mhm.
And 8 years into the relationship, she was telling me that I don't know what we're in a relationship for. I don't know why we're
Mm,
married for. We're not really building anything together. So they're having a second phase of relationship conversation. If we're so happy living these independent lives, should we just live independently and not be married? So that's always been my struggle, is maybe I just can't prioritize a romantic relationship, but I can prioritize activity relationships, friendships,
yeah.
all of that in my life, and feel very much fulfilled in that way.
But I guess the question is like, if your partner doesn't have an issue with it, is there still a
Hmm.
benefit? Like the people that you were describing,
Hmm.
like they're both independent. They both like to do
Yes.
their own thing, but you're there saying they don't feel like they're getting enough from the relationship. Like, are they getting anything that makes it valuable still, you know?
Yeah. I asked her that question. She says, well, I'm getting safety and stability and consistency and familiarity and someone who really understands me, kind of like best friend. And I guess in some ways, this is the relationship we have with our best friends.
Yeah.
You have separate lives, but there's a
Yeah.
mutual understanding. But then it brought her to question, then why be married? Why not just be best friends?
Mm.
And then we can have romantic flings outside of this relationship and not feel guilty for wanting to chase other energies. And she really thought that the only thing that could really bond them together is if they were to raise a child.
Mm.
Like that would, because why else? Like, what else are they working towards? And oh my God, I was like, that's such an interesting crossroads they're at.
So are they still together?
They're still together. They're still together. They're still trying to figure it out. She's actually looking into adoption. He's open to it. But also, end of the day, we all know a kid is never going to save
Oh my
your
God,
marriage.
I know. I was going to say that. I was like, I feel like if that's the glue, that's a bad idea.
It's never going to save your marriage. But that's something I struggle with in my own relationship is I'm always questioning, what are we building towards?
Yeah.
What is this thing? And it doesn't, for me, it's not kids, but is it like, are we building, is there a project for us to work on? Like, is there something that we can look back 10 years from now and say, we did that. We're proud of ourselves for doing that. And if we don't have that, then we become two people coexisting together and engaging in activities together.
But is that a problem? I guess like that's where I'm at of like, if it's like two people that are on the same page, I think like if one person wants more, then it's clearly a problem.
Yeah.
But if two people are content with just being activity buddies and, that person that they bond with and, have like more of a sexual compatibility, all that, like, is that really like, is there going to be an expiration date on it? Or are we just so focused on like the end goal that feels like we're doing something wrong?
I think every couple will have to go through their own exploration
Yeah.
and see, for the next 3 months, let's just try being super independent and see what happens. I think where I've struggled in even that train of thought is being in a relationship is still different than not being in a relationship with someone, right? So there's still obligations in a relationship that are unsaid. For example, spending holidays together. It's sort of unsaid, but you kind of expect it. You are each other's emergency contacts.
Yeah.
You do take your partner to the hospital if they need it. There's like obligation that comes with it. So if you two are still okay being obligated to each other to take care of each other, but then live independently, I think that's okay. But some people struggle, and I struggle with this. It's like, I don't know if I can be obligated to someone, but then live independently.
Yeah. Like it's like that girl that asked the question about like having to go to her partner's events.
Yes.
It's like
exactly.
If you really just don't want to do it and you want to just do your own thing all the time, like it's
then
hard
why
to have
be in that relationship?
Yeah, I
right?
feel like after like the first year, you can kind of get away with like doing your own thing with holidays and not being the emergency but then like past that, it does get hard.
You kind of have to, right?
Yeah.
You have to split the holidays. You have to make sure you're catering to each other's families. There is still so much more involved in a relationship.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I want to go into like what independence in a relationship looks like a little more. But before we do, let's take a minute to hear from our sponsors.
Fall is in full swing, and it's the perfect time to refresh your wardrobe with pieces that feel as good as they look. And luckily, Quince makes it easy to look polished, stay warm, and save big without compromising on quality. Now, Quince has all the elevated essentials for the fall. Think 100% Mongolian cashmere from $50, washable silk tops and skirts, which I have many of, and perfectly tailored denim, all at prices that feel too good to be true. Why? Because they partner directly with ethical top-tier factories, and they cut out the middleman to deliver luxury luxury quality pieces at half the price of similar brands. I think Quince has become my one-stop shop. They're just pieces that I keep reaching for over and over again. And one of those pieces are my linen pants. They're just like the perfect transitional piece from summer into the fall, which is so great for here in LA. Keep it classic and cozy this fall with long-lasting staples from Quince. Go to quince.com/dateable for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/dateable to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/DATEABLE.
Okay, so let's say you are opting to do a relationship, to be all in,
Mhm.
like I am. I'm now
Mhm.
married. I'm all in.
Yeah.
But I think like I still don't like I think both my partner and I want to have some independence. I want to be
Mhm.
known as Julie. Like part
Mhm.
of why, I mean, I did end up changing my name legally to a
Mhm.
hyphenated name, but I wanted to keep Julie Kraftchick professionally
Yeah.
because that was like my identity and I didn't want to get rid of it completely, even like personally, because I want to have some of my own personal identity to not just merge 100%. And
Yeah.
I think like for me, it's important to have a life outside of the relationship, like to have friendships and hobbies and passions and things that aren't always about the two of us. So like I have my own identity. Like one of my friends, like she actually is like a mom and she did this TV show about real estate. And she's like, part of it is like, I didn't want to just be a mom. Like I wanted to
Yeah.
have my own identity and like do things. And she's still a great mom. And like that hasn't sacrificed. And I hope for me someday that that's the case as well. Like I don't want my whole identity to become like a wife or a mother.
Yes. Yes. And they've done so many sociological studies about this because historically, men keep their identities throughout their
Mhm.
whole lives. And women adapt their identities to whoever they're in service of, their husband, their kids, their family, right? Our identities kind of go with the people in our lives. Because of the feminist movement, because of equality, women are now waking up to the fact that, oh, I can have my own identity and I can identify what that identity is. But that also means giving up previous identities. So this is why so many women have struggled in recent times. It's like if you adopt this new identity, you have to like kind of grieve the old identity
Right.
in the process, especially for mothers. I've heard so many mothers say, I used to be a career woman. I used to be a triathlete. And now I'm just a mom, which is crazy because a
Yeah.
mom's so much work. So then they have to grieve the old identity and identify with this new phase of life, but then also keep
Mhm.
adding to that identity because women are not happy just being a wife, just being a mom, just being a career person. It's really complicated.
Yeah, I think for me, it's definitely like the balance of my own identity and then like having other outlets and people, like not recognizing that your partner like can't do everything for you. I
Yeah.
think, I mean, another piece that I don't think I will ever lose, but it's something that I hold very high value to is to still be able to make decisions for yourself.
Yeah.
That's not to mean that you don't take into account your partner's decisions or you don't make some decisions together. But I do think like being independent in a relationship still allows you to express your needs, say no if you don't want to, and make choices that honor your values, even if they're different than your partner's, or have a discussion about it.
I think what's really unique to you and your fiance, well, you and your husband's relationship is that both of you have established yourselves in San Francisco before meeting each other. So you already built independent lives and networks outside of each other. So when you come together, you can hold on to that independence. For people who move to new cities for their spouse and they have to rebuild, I think it's so important to start building your community right away outside of your spouse, right? When you get into a new place, it's hard, but if you don't have that from the start, you end up just molding to your spouse's network.
That's a really good point to like, yeah. And I think you're right. Like, it's way easier if you meet already having that.
Yeah, I mean not easier, but it's nice because you can be really confident in your independence in San
Yeah.
Francisco because you've already established this great social network there that a relationship is just an added bonus. But I do think about the people who've moved for relationships. How hard that must be.
So I had a friend who I'm not friends with anymore. But we
Okay.
used to like be really close, and then she got a boyfriend, and then suddenly she was not texting. Suddenly she was not
Uh-huh.
around. And at first I was like, oh God, she's one of those, you know, the second they get a boyfriend, she just like bounces.
Mm-hmm.
And then years later, it turned out that like her partner was like borderline abusive
Oh,
and controlling.
shit.
Yeah. So you just like don't really know. But I think like having
God,
some of that independence, and again, I'm not blaming this girl. I honestly wish I had known more of what was happening
man.
at the
Mm-hmm.
time, because I think you would have a very different take on it of, you know, how it came off versus what might have been happening. But
Mm-hmm.
I think like just abandoning yourself completely. And I
Oh,
think like obviously that could be self inflicted, like I thought it was for her, or this unfortunate case where you feel more like indebted to someone else. Like that's
oh,
clearly a relationship that's just bad in general, where someone
yeah.
doesn't allow you to be yourself. But I think that is a huge sign of like not healthy independence of,
Yeah.
or non-healthy codependence, right? If like
Correct.
you
Yeah.
just, you know, you basically abandon yourself to keep the peace.
Oh, it's so sad to think about that, which is why I overcorrect the other
Yeah,
direction to hear stories like that,
I
right? To
know.
lose yourself in a relationship because once you're out of that relationship, you feel like you're nothing. You feel like you
Yeah,
have to start from zero, which is not true, but that is the feeling because you've molded yourself to someone else's identity. So then it makes me course correct to like being ultra independent and being,
yeah,
not letting anybody get in my space or tell me what I'm supposed to do. But that's also that emotional unavailability
yeah.
that doesn't work either. So striking that balance, which is obviously why we're having this episode, is always so hard. It's constantly just trying different things.
Totally. Yeah, I think like the shrinking, silencing yourself, or morphing into someone else, like those are all no goes. But like we were talking about earlier, of like sometimes compromising or
Yeah.
doing something because you know it's important to your partner. Like those to
Yes.
me are a different, like there is a balance of not being a doormat, but also, you know, being accommodating to someone else too.
Yes. And knowing that everything you do, again, benefits the relationship. You cultivating your independence to a healthy degree does benefit the relationship because you're two like whole people coming together. You're just going to be stronger together. And I do think having time for yourself to benefit the relationship
Yeah,
does make the relationship so much better. When you're apart from your
totally.
partner for a little bit, you get to experience new things and you come back and you're so excited to tell your partner about that. That is like one of the most wonderful things about being in a relationship.
Yeah, and I mean, I think like if you can support each other's individuality,
Yeah.
like you're a cheerleader for each other and their personal growth, and you know, something that doesn't necessarily directly even impact the relationship, but it's like just them being them. I think that is actually very healthy independence in a relationship,
Hmm.
because ultimately it allows you to still be you, but then you have someone in your corner cheering you on.
Yes. Yes. And what about just this feeling of being afraid of being alone?
Yeah,
So then you're holding on to a relationship thinking, well, at least I'm not alone. It's better to be with someone than that. Versus the healthy way of thinking is I'm in a relationship that only adds to my life, but I'm also okay being alone.
totally. I mean, I think that's actually what helped me get into a relationship, is that I
COVID.
got to the place that I was like, if this is what being alone is like, it's not that bad. It's actually pretty freaking good. And I think having a full life entering a relationship is a very healthy independence, but not
Hmm.
being too busy that you can't make time for someone. I think there's the line of, you know, being open and not pushing your partner away or never needing help, but also being able to support and take care of yourself too.
What made you get to the point where you said being alone is pretty good? I've established a pretty good life for myself, but I'm still creating space for a partner.
Yeah.
Cuz I do find, and I've recently met a woman who is at this crossroads where she's like, "My life is fucking amazing."
Yeah.
And anybody who comes in better add to it. It's like this feeling of entitlement,
Hmm.
right? How were you able to dial it in So you get a nice balance.
I'm just thinking back on that time, and I don't know if they actually happened at the same time. Like,
Okay.
I don't think I had that realization. And then I was like, let me go date and meet someone. I think it was like
Yeah.
this realization, I'm just going to live my life and do things that fill my cup, continue to form connection with like people in my life and friends and all of that. And then it hit a point that I was like, I'm ready to date again. I'm ready to
Mm-hmm.
like meet someone that's more in a romantic context. But if things didn't work out when I was doing that, I was less attached to the outcome than I was before, where I put like so much weight on being with someone and finding someone.
So there's a difference. What I'm hearing is there's a difference between my life is fucking amazing and I'm going to find a partner who is going to only add to my life
Yeah.
versus my life is fucking amazing and I'm open to connections. But if it happens, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah, I think maybe the key word is that I was happy with my life and wanting to share it with someone else, not
Uh,
looking for someone that would only make it better.
mm,
And that's not to say
mm,
like they're not additive in your life, because like I think still having the partner that sees you and is there for you is net additive in your life. But I wasn't
yeah.
like, oh, they must do this to make my life better, or I'm not going to like entertain them.
Ooh, a light bulb thought then is you want to find someone who can celebrate the life that you've already built for yourself,
Hmm.
who can highlight all of your accomplishments and recognize that you've done a lot for yourself. I'm saying in the context of even this dating podcast, you saw the difference between people who are like, oh, you do a dating podcast
Yeah.
or it's just a podcast
Yeah.
versus your now husband who's like, that's awesome that you do that, right? Who
Yeah.
really celebrates that. And that's the key difference. It's not about someone coming in and be like, let me help you improve your podcast or
Right.
yeah, we can take this, we can do this together. Someone who's just like, I recognize the journey you've gone through. You've accomplished a lot and I celebrate you for the life you had before me.
Yeah. And you do it for them. And then you're
Yeah.
building something new together.
No, you don't celebrate them at all. Just kidding. I mean, that's nice that you had a career, but let's talk about my podcast.
I think the independence too is that you're responsible for your own happiness. I think it comes with
Yeah,
it
yes,
too,
yes,
is
yes.
that like you don't expect your partner to complete you, like your joy and happiness, fulfillment, purpose. It's like not dependent on them. Like you already have that independent. I think that to me is like a good place to be in, opposed to like being like, once I have the relationship, then I'll be happy and life will fall into place.
Oh, that's so true. Yeah. There's no completing you. There's no someone who just suddenly comes in and you just become this better person. You're already that, and someone else can just really recognize and see that in you.
So now that we've gone through healthy sides, what are times when independence becomes a wall? And this is, I think, what maybe you're struggling with a little
Yes,
of like,
all the
when
time.
am I too independent that it's causing me to avoid vulnerability or let my partner in?
Mhm. Yeah, and
Yeah.
a prime example is with my previous relationship during COVID. I brought up this example before. We were, when COVID happened, a lot of couples ended up living together without intentionally doing so. We were spending every day together, and he made a comment like, "Maybe sometimes you should go back to your own apartment." And I took that as, "Oh, you don't want me in your life."
Mm.
So I packed up all my shit. I moved back into my apartment and I was like, fine, you don't ever have to see me again. That is such typical too independent behavior because I was like, oh, you're rejecting me? Then I don't ever need to see you again. I'm taking myself out of your life. What I could have done in retrospect is lean into it. What is it that you need? Right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, let's benefit the relationship. What do you need? You need space, you need time, let's talk about what your needs are and we can talk about what my needs are and we can find a happy middle ground. Both of us came at it so hot with something that we didn't really mean to do and it became a big misunderstanding and we fought for like a week because of it. But I've learned from that.
Yeah.
I know that was the maverick in me that came out. It came out so hot and it came out as such a knee-jerk reaction. I didn't even have time to intentionally answer or respond to what he was saying.
I think that example's so interesting because, like, I would hear if you're independent and your partner is independent, then being like, I need space. Maybe you should go back to your place. Being like, cool, this sounds ideal. Now I have my space. But you're saying that even as someone that values independence, you took it in a way that, like, was a dig, like it was like a hurt to you. Like,
Well,
when,
here's
yeah, okay.
the thing, Julie. I think that's a really brilliant observation because in being independent means being independent on my terms,
Okay.
right? I don't
see.
want someone
I
else to be
see, I
like,
see.
shouldn't you take some me time? Like, can you imagine if your partner's like, Julia, you should go take some me time. You should like go do something on your own. Yeah, I think that actually threatens my independence because you're telling me to be independent.
So if they had said, I just want my own time, do you think
Yes.
you would have reacted the same way? Or you would have been
No.
like, cool, okay.
Yeah, I think if he was like, who knows how long this COVID thing's going to happen for? I would really like some me time and some space to myself. And maybe you want that too, but let's discuss like our needs. But he came at it as, this is what I heard, get out of my apartment.
Yeah.
I don't want you in my life. And then I was like, fine, you're never going to have me again.
So I feel like to be that's like you kind of keeping someone at arm's length emotionally.
Yeah.
Because it's not really like saying what you actually need. Like, do you feel like there's been a time? Because I know for me, there's been a time that I feel like I can't share fully. And it's like, I don't want to threaten. For me, it was less about threatening my independence, but it was like threatening the relationship. Do you have like an example for you that's been like a threat of your independence when you don't want to, share or ask for help?
Oh, yeah. I've always been really bad at asking for help because I feel like I'm an independent woman. I can get it done by myself. And then I would do something and my partner would be like, well, how come you didn't ask me to help? Or how come you didn't want me to be part of that? Like moving, for example, when I moved out of SF, I thought I could just do it on my own. But my partner's like, I have a car. Why don't I just help you? Why is that so hard? And then it makes some people feel like they're inadequate. Like I didn't ask you because...
And you've been together for a long time at that point.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
I guess like what was it that like keeps it, like I guess like what is that switch? Because that feels like, is that just like innate in some people that they just like kind of are so used to doing things their own way for so long? Is that what it is?
I think it's in some ways you feel like, oh, I can do this. And in other ways, I don't want to burden someone else with this. And I don't want them to feel obligated.
Okay.
I've always had this feeling like ever since I was a kid, I don't want someone to do something for me because they feel obligated to do so. I want them to feel like they want to do it. It's problematic. I get it.
It makes sense though. I'm just trying to like understand the rationale. And I think it's good for people to hear too, whether they're the person that is like, yeah, I get it. Or they're like, I have a partner like that. Because it does explain more. It's not like, oh, I don't trust you to help me move.
No.
It's like, I just think it's something I can do on my own. I don't need to ask you.
Yeah. I don't want you to feel like you have to.
The I've got it handled energy.
Yeah. And you know what? I know all of us, everybody listening right now, I know you got it handled. I know all of us can do everything on our own, but we don't have to.
Yeah.
I think that's where the softening up comes from. Is like, you want to be in a relationship because two is better than one. You can get a lot more done with two people, and you do have strengths that are complementary. Why not utilize everybody that's involved in your team? It's like having a team at work. Why wouldn't you use everybody?
I think this is hard for people that have been single for a while.
Yes.
Like I find a lot of my stuff is by habit. It's not even because I'm like afraid to let someone in. Here's a dumb example, but it's something.
I'm ready.
Like there are many times 4 years into my relationship that I'll still grab one fork. And it drives my partner crazy because he's like, hey, what about me? We're here together, And I'm like, it's just because for years I grab one fork. And I think like for a lot of times like that, when I do like, I've got it handled on my own, it's just because I'm used to doing it my own. Yeah. And I think sometimes like it's either like someone won't do it as well as I will. That's like my own type A-ness coming into independence, or I don't want to ask for help because I don't want to put it on them.
Yes. Well, I think that example is not about independence because you're not thinking in that moment, like, I'm not going to grab two forks because it threatens my independence, right?
No, but it's a
It's
one
habit.
person thinking though.
It's
Yeah.
one person thinking. It's a habit that you developed while you lived independently. That's a difference. So you're not like pushing your partner away in that habit. I think the habit stuff is actually a lot easier to deal with in
Yeah.
a relationship because all you need is a partner who can call you out and be like, hey, grab me a second fork. But the mentality of someone being like, you can grab your own fork, that would
Mm.
be a red flag, right? If someone's like, why do I need to grab your fork? You can grab your own.
Yeah, I think though part of it is like if you're in that mentality of independence only, you might actually push away people too when they get too close or push away people that are emotionally available because it almost feels like they're encroaching into your space. Like, do you feel like that's something you've dealt with?
Yeah, it's unintentional. Yeah. I don't do, I mean, the example I can think of is I just don't text back that fast. And for so long, I was just like, this is how I'm going to do it on my own time. I'm not
Hmm.
thinking about the other person. And that has definitely pushed people away to say, oh, you're not that interested or you're not prioritizing me. So yeah, even the just small changes in behavior can make a huge difference in a relationship and it can cause misunderstanding if you don't
Yeah.
address it.
The doing it on my time is a big one, I think. Like doing
Yes.
it my way on my time. So how do you start to like compromise on that? Like that it doesn't push away?
I think having you and I are lucky to have recent partners who can call us out in a loving way to bring to light the
Yeah.
behavior. And then once they do, I think it does make you want to change or it makes you at
Mm.
least more aware of that. I think my issue for so long is in all my previous relationships, nobody ever called me out. If we were to
Mm.
interview my exes today, they probably all had similar themes of what they would complain
Mm.
about. None of them said anything because
Yeah.
they probably didn't know how to deliver the message. So I
Yeah.
am actually really thankful for people who can give feedback in a loving, kind, compassionate way.
I mean, I think like you're really good at taking feedback. I think I'm medium at taking feedback. I think you're really
I
good
think
at it.
you've done a really good job at taking
Okay, thank you.
feedback.
I appreciate hearing
You've
that
made a
from other
lot of progress.
I think I always look to you as someone that's really good at it though. I know like when I've expressed to you certain things, you're like, oh, okay. Like it's like that thought of that pivot point of like, I didn't realize that's how it's coming off.
Mhm.
Now that I'm aware, I will think about things differently. It doesn't mean that you're going to always necessarily be like, okay, I'm going to do exactly what you want now,
Mhm.
because that's still your own independence and the way you're thinking about it. But at least there's like that secondary thought maybe of like, oh, I could wait an hour to reply to this to do it on my terms, or I could
Yes.
do it now because I know it's important to the person.
In service of that relationship or in service of that friendship, thinking in the team mentality
Yeah.
versus the individual mentality is important. And for people who are uber mavericks and independent, when you get into a new relationship, I found it really useful to tell your partner this is who you are. I have a tendency to show a lot of independence that could be misinterpreted as pushing someone away. If you
Mhm.
sense that, just let me know. I love feedback. I love someone telling me or highlighting to me, reflect back to me what you're seeing. And if I am aware of that behavior, then I am more willing and more able to change or at least adjust accordingly and not just sit there blindly thinking everything's fine when you've been, brewing up all this resentment for something I didn't even know I was aware. I'm not aware that I was doing that.
I think one thing I've turned my like beliefs on is emotional dependence as a weakness. Like I think I used to think like
Ah,
if I was dependent on someone else, I'd lose myself. And then if things like fell apart with them, like I would be screwed. And it was like all this like kind of defense against it. And
mhm,
I've now seen like healthy interdependence as a
mhm.
strength. Like have you kind of gone through any of those thoughts with that?
What do you think would be a good example of something like that? Like I think interdependence is a word that can be so
Yeah.
general. So can you think of a more specific example of what that could look like?
Okay, here's one that comes to mind. Like
Mhm.
it's a bad example because this couple is not together anymore.
Oh
But
boy, okay, okay.
I used to think it was really great that they did their own thing all the time.
Mhm.
And I was like, I wouldn't want to be one of those couples that spent all my time with my partner. Like I thought
Mhm.
like there was like something like that person was too needy or like too, not independent, I guess. Like their
Mhm.
whole life was dependent on this other person. And I used to look at this other couple and be like, oh, I like it that they're all just doing their own thing. Maybe looking back on it now, that was not a good sign. And I think like with my partner, like he is my best friend. He is my favorite person to be around. So like
Mhm.
if my friends are going out, this doesn't mean that I never like have time with just like my girlfriends. Sure, I definitely do. And there's a time and place for that. But if there's an option to also bring spouses and partners
Mhm.
along, I'll choose that because I'm like, I enjoy being with him and having him there. So I think that
Yes.
was an example.
I love that example. I actually was just thinking about that something similar when I was watching this video about Lauren Sanchez and Jeff Bezos. Okay. Someone was pointing out this is why Lauren Sanchez was able to get to lock down Jeff Bezos. I'm not saying as a billionaire, but basically like as a partner. There was a video of them coming out of separate rooms to greet their guests. And I think she was getting ready in one room. He was already in this room. And while she was greeting the guests, she was holding his hand and not letting
Mm,
go. I used to be the person, and I still am sometimes, if I'm with my partner in front of friends or in public, I don't show that. I don't
mm,
show that we're a couple because I feel
mm,
like it makes other people uncomfortable. This has always been my line of thinking. So I would prioritize greeting friends before I show that this is
mm.
my partner.
Yeah,
But in that video, this person pointed out no matter where they're at, she's showing that she's prioritizing their relationship
I like that a lot.
in front of other people. And I was like, holy shit. Like, this is not something that have ever crossed my mind. I used to think it was a sign of weakness to be like, oh, this is my partner. And we're so, we're so into each other. We can't let go of each other's
Yeah,
hands. No, it's actually showing like we are first and foremost, this is my line, my hierarchy. He's my number one. And then everybody else is wonderful. Like, we love
right.
you guys, but this is my number one.
I love that so much. I want to get into then what the sweet spot is, because I think that's really what the build up to this whole thing has been. But before we do, let's take a minute to hear from our sponsors. Okay, so interdependence. I love this definition because I think
Mhm.
sometimes it's like, what does this word mean? So interdependence in a relationship means two whole people choosing to be connected without losing themselves. It's the
Mm.
healthy middle ground between codependence, where you rely too much on your partner, and hyper independence, where you refuse to rely on them at
Ah.
all.
Oh. So the spectrum is codependence on one end and hyper independence on the other.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
And I think it's like really you rely on each other, but you don't lose autonomy. Like you're not afraid to lean on your partner, but you're also fully capable on your own.
Right. Right. I do really like that. I think I've always been afraid of codependence.
Hmm.
So then, of course, on the other side of the spectrum is you lean
Yeah.
into hyper independence. Then, and that at that point, if you're hyper independent, why even be in a relationship?
Totally. And I think like for years, like I was afraid to share feelings or needs or anything openly because again, I was like afraid it would make me too needy or too codependent. And then like I basically did nothing. And then to them, that probably actually means like indifference because you're not stating
Yes.
anything. And that kind of swings more on the hyper independence line.
The through line for me in all of this is feeling safe in a
Yeah.
relationship. The more safe I feel, the more interdependent I can be.
Hmm.
But I think the independence, at least I can only speak for myself, is protection,
Yes. A lot of times it
right?
is.
And I want to become hyper independent to show that I don't need you. You can't hurt me. You can't leave me in the dust. You can't take away my identity. It's a lot of if it's a lot of like you are guilty as my partner
Yeah.
versus like how do we work together, which is where that interdependence comes in.
Yeah, I think solving problems together as a team instead of the me versus you mentality, and then
Mhm.
taking responsibility for your own part. I think the other piece too is like allowing closeness and freedom. And this is
Yes.
something too that like I've had to like give a little on too, because like my partner needs downtime. And I think it's interesting because like I'm at home all week and
Hmm.
he's in the office all week. So on
Yep.
weekends, the last thing I want to do is be at home. And he
Yes.
just wants to chill out at home.
Yes.
So we've had to kind of have like one day that we're like, oh, we're definitely doing stuff together. And then the other
Yes.
day that's a little more flex that allows him to have a little more alone time, and I can go to the gym and leave the house, but like do my own thing more. And I think
Yes.
at the beginning, I kind of like struggle with it because I'm like, oh, I'm so used to being together all the time. But then I'm like, oh, there's actually beauty in this. I can do things that I want to do. I can see other people. I can fill my own cup and he can also recharge and then be back for the relationship. And I think
Hmm.
that's really the balance of, you're not just going your own way all the time, but you're still carving own space for, each other's like downtime and also individual growth.
I think that is the basis of so many conflicts in relationship is when you have a misalignment of the ramp up and the ramp down.
Yeah.
Someone's energized, the other one is depleted, and then when you're both trying to do something together, you're never going to want to do the same things. So having that middle ground of one day in the weekend where you're both at the same energy level, then you can go from there. But yeah, the misalignment is always an issue for so many people.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, love enhances your life. It doesn't replace your identity.
Yeah.
And we need to remember that with independence in relationships is that relationships are still a choice. They're not a necessity and a need. You're
Hmm.
not like staying together because like you can't do life on your own, but you're staying together because you want to be with the other
Yeah.
person.
Yes. And constantly being transparent about what it's triggering for you and what it's bringing up for you. Even thinking about this idea of solving problems as a team, I hear from so many of my friends who are constantly being like, I have to make a checklist for my husband every time I go away. And I have to make sure he knows what to do and the responsibilities of the kid and et cetera, et cetera. But then the question is like, are you giving your partner a chance to solve this
Yeah.
issue with you? If you're just giving them the cheat sheet all the time. And
Yeah.
I get this is a lot of work up front, but I think it is a necessary work because when you get in the habit of one person always being responsible and the other person just following orders, that's the script you're going to follow. And that's where that resentment builds.
Yeah.
So it's always good to just address all of this upfront.
Yeah, I think it's like what you were saying earlier about protection, but then there's also like being kind of a control freak type A that
Yeah.
I think when I become ultra independent, it's because I'm afraid of things like not getting done correctly, or at
Yeah.
least the way I perceive correctly. And I think a big
Yes.
piece of a partnership that both my partner and I've had to learn is like we may have different definitions of things getting done correctly. And
Yes.
that's okay. And it doesn't mean that one is right and one is wrong. They're
Yes.
just different.
And you both have responsibilities and you both have different strengths. So
Yeah.
lean into those strengths and you don't have to be independent and have to take care of everything on your own, even though you are very capable of doing so.
So, thinking about this conversation, if we were to leave people with maybe like one parting thought of like when you have that kind of that crossroads of, am I being too codependent versus too independent? Like, what do I do to move towards interdependence? What's something that you would kind of leave people with?
Because everyone falls on the spectrum of independence, going from codependent to hyper independent. I say, if you know where you are on the spectrum, ask yourself the question, where do I want to expand my capacity for?
Mm,
If I know I'm close to hyper independence, I want to expand my capacity for more on the other side of the spectrum. Obviously not all the way to codependence, but what could that look like? And if that is my goal, then I want to work on that in a relationship. If that's something I want to work on. You could also be, again, like we said at the beginning, if you're hyper independent and you're happy being there and you don't want to be in a relationship, don't let other people guilt trip you into being in a relationship to be less independent. Just stay there. Still, you have to know what you're looking
yeah.
for.
Yeah. I think it's like asking yourself too, like, what are the areas that I'm shutting someone out?
Mm.
And that it's important for me to be a little more open versus the areas that actually are really important that I maintain my autonomy. Because I
Yes.
think I'll just bring it back to the stupid example of the fork. Like that doesn't it's not like a value of mine to not bring someone a fork, right?
Right.
That's it's like a habit. It's something that's just not expanding for no reason other than just laziness or just I'm used to it. Or like what you were saying, sometimes you don't know if someone doesn't tell you. And then when they
Right.
tell you, you're like, oh, I could text back earlier. What are those areas that you're like, this actually doesn't really like the red in who I am or anything. It's just being a kinder human to the people in
Yes.
my life. And then what are those areas that I'm like, actually, this is really important. Like, let's say you're like, I want to make sure I maintain financial independence, even when I'm married, get a prenup, have a separate account, whatever it is. Like, those are the things that I think it's really important to draw that line on. So for every decision, it's not like, nope, this threatens me. I'm too independent. Or, oh, I'll just do whatever
Yes.
you want. No big deal. And then I completely sacrifice myself.
And maybe that is the barometer for whether you're selfish or actually doing something in service of something, right? Being selfish means you're only doing something in service of yourself. The other side of it is are you doing something in service of the greater good, in service of the relationship, in service of the friendship?
Yeah.
And if the answer is always like, I'm doing this in service of myself, you have your answer.
Right. And it's like obviously this episode was about more of the independence side of the spectrum. We could do a whole other episode about codependence. But the answer here is not to just swing to the other side of the spectrum either and just do whatever someone else wants all the time and sacrifice yourself completely. Again, I think it's finding what are those I don't know, it's like an exercise that you could do with someone that figures out where to build versus sacrificing yourself.
Yep. Meaty one.
It is a meaty one. I think sometimes we have to reflect a lot. And I think even if you can make a little movement on that spectrum, that's a win. It doesn't need to be all of a sudden I'm going from hyper independent to interdependent. We're not saying to make those swings.
And those are always going to be the questions that you come up with in a relationship. It doesn't mean that you decide on something today that works today. It's going to work tomorrow too. So having that iterative conversation with your partner is so important.
Yeah. I mean, I still want to dive in. Maybe at some point we have your friends come on the podcast if they're willing. But the
so
two people that it's if you can, because I still think there is this world, maybe this is naive thinking of if two people are on the same page, you could still make it work. If you're I only want to see you once a week, but that works for both people, you can still have a relationship. I don't know. Listeners, let us know. Do you think you can build something on your terms that kind of involves separate lifestyles? Or do you think that's just kind of a ticking time bomb of the relationship ending?
I so want to know, because such a new relationship structure, and we hear more and more of couples who are married, who live separately. It sounds, to me as a maverick, it sounds perfect on paper.
Yeah.
I just don't know if you can actually build connection if you're not building a life with each other on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's the question.
That is the question.
Okay. Well, if you want more answers to questions, definitely go get How to Be Dateable, our book, wherever books are sold, audiobook as well. People love the audiobook. I feel like the audiobook, we just get so many, it's people it's an extended version of this podcast, but not a bonus episode. It's a whole thing in itself of really, taking all the themes from this podcast. So check it out.
8-hour bonus episode.
An 8-hour bonus episode. It is not a bonus episode. But also make sure to get the hardcover because you get to see the illustrations that yours truly put together.
Yes, it's so good.
Okay.
Worth it.
Well, thank you all for joining us on this conversation the two of us really wanted to have.
Yes. We don't know about you, but we really wanted to have this discussion.
I think this is going to relate because of how many Mavericks we saw.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, I can name 5 friends off the top of my head alone who needs to hear this episode. But on that note, we're going to wrap up this episode. Stay dateable.